Studios, the AusBiz COB is the key stuff you need to know about the day in business and finance.
Well, hello, and welcome to the COB. It is a Thursday afternoon, the 5th of February. I'm Nadine Blaney.
I'm Juliette Sarli, and we are coming to you from a little lunchroom today. Thought for something different, we'd just sit back and talk you through what happened on the market today, and kind of a little bit of a different story when you look at the market map, Nadine, to what we saw yesterday. You know, energy materials were like really powering us along. Today, that's where you saw the weakness. There was some defensive buying going back into healthcare. ResMed had a really good session, and then of course we're continuing to watch what's happening with the wobbles in the tech space. But the overall IT sector, which was slammed by something like 8% yesterday, up by about 0.8% today.
In some ways, Juliette, I'm not surprised, because we are consistently getting questions from our viewers, from our listeners, saying, when is low enough? When do you buy into these tech stocks? When do they start to look like a really good bargain? So clearly some bargain hunters moving in today, although I will note that WiseTech is still down by 3.2% as we end this session here in Sydney, just past 4 p.m. here. We've got the gold miners looking pretty weak again as well, down by 4.1% for the likes of Northern Star Resources, but BHP off by close to 4% as well.
That's kind of, I guess, reversing that really big gain that it had yesterday, isn't it? But it was, I think, $2 off an all-time high yesterday, so maybe no surprise that you're seeing a little bit of some profit taking there. I thought what was interesting as well was that big rise coming through in Amcor today, up by about 5.6%, so the best performer there on the ASX 200. But of course, also watching this sort of wobbles coming through that we mentioned in the energy sector. So NextGen down by about 8%, Paladin Energy off by about 6%. And the other thing that is kind of interesting in terms of sort of themes, because we've talked about this digging deep with the miners, the healthy appetite. I had a great chat with Nick Twidell from ATFX on the trade today, of course giving an outlook in terms of all the currency moves following. This is the first time we've chatted to him since the RBA hiked. But we've got the Bank of England and ECB tonight. He called them damp squib decisions and not expecting any kind of movement. Jonathan Sheridan from FIG saying, you know, probably not too much more movement in the bond and gilt market either.
Yeah, so we'll be watching that and bring you the wash up from it. Of course, it's a job sort of week in the US as well. We've got the wash up from, well, the ADP private jobs ready to come. We'll get the jobless claims that come through tonight. There was a bit of weakness being expressed in the private numbers. And of course, are we getting the non-farm payroll release? Because the partial government shutdown has been resolved, but there was some consternation that perhaps we wouldn't get them coming through this week.
I don't want to be the definitive note on that, but I think we are getting those. It was just that private, not private, the other indicator that was meant to come out that they said they were halting, but I believe that should be coming through on Friday. And of course, tomorrow, Friday, not too much happening, but Nadine, when you look ahead to next week, that is when it really ramps up. So I think Wednesday we've got CBA, we've got SGH, we've got AGL reporting, we've got IAG later in the week, we've got Cochlear, CSL. So you really got to gird your loins, if you will, for a very, very busy reporting season next week.
Add to that the quarter from Macquarie, and, you know, there's been some question marks over Macquarie. We get Computershare as well. Dexis, so a bit of a look into the office property market, which I know we've been speaking with our guests about quite a bit on the last call, and we'll do so again with Seelan Ten, as well as Vanessa Rader from Ray White, if you'd like to join us post 3 p.m. tomorrow.
Yeah.
We've also got Stockland coming through, and in the mining and resource space, ahead of BHP the following week, we do have South 32 and a quarterly update from Westpac as well. So yeah, a packed week next week. What have the conversations that you've been having around reporting season been like? Because everybody I've been speaking to has just said, you know, brace yourself for any of these beats or misses.
Yeah, well, and I think we saw that last season too, didn't we, when we saw those big wild swings in the likes of CSL, Sonic. So a lot of people, Andrew Coleman was actually telling me from Tip Group as well the other day that potentially we could see that again. That was something that we hadn't seen before. I just wanted to pick up on what you said on the REITs, because I spoke to Belinda Chong from Centuria Office earlier on the back of their results. And I said, what are you watching in terms of whether or not you're going to see this sustainability in terms of office recovery, and she was just like rent, rent growth, whether or not people are interested in picking up, what sort of return to office mandates are doing as well for the space. But they had a really good first half and they returned to profit from a loss in the prior half, and they are guiding pretty strong in terms of funds from operations too. So that'll be a good one to talk to Vanessa and Sulin tomorrow. I do want to point out that we just haven't touched on yet the plunge back in silver, down 13.5%.
Yeah, those precious metals, you get whiplash watching those prices these days. Look, I spoke with Violeta Tordova earlier this week from Leverage Shares, and she just is still calling this a very healthy correction in gold and silver. She's still expecting gold to trend higher toward the end of the year. So you'll go online, find that interview. That's a technical view on where these metals markets are headed. But yeah, I mean, it is not one for the faint of heart. Bit of news out there today. We've got a new CEO being appointed at Elders, so taking over the helm from its long-serving CEO. Neuron Pharmaceuticals got smashed when it came out of a trading halt. A little bit of doubt being cast over its the regulatory bodies and how they're looking at that product that it has. It started in Europe, and then there were concerns over the US. And to your point, we have seen some of those companies report, including Beach Energy.
Yeah, Beach Energy down about 4%, posted an 8% dip in net profit. We also had Regal Partners in focus. It was up about 5%, announced an on-market share buyback program. And the ASX in focus as well. The average daily number of trades rising 71% year on year. But remember, we had 10 stocks leave the exchange just last month, and that really did not help the fact that, there were 4 new companies, 4 IPOs, but 10 companies leaving the exchange. On the call, Andrew was speaking to Anthony Golowenko and also Sanjeev Narendran. The stock of the day on the call was what tech stock they would be buying.
Hansen Technology has been around 50 years. Like, as fundamental as why does it exist? What problem does it solve? How does it make money? How's it going to grow? And we've seen over that time, and the listed part of that journey has been really consistent. They have an acquisition strategy, been growing, or Hansenisation as they refer to it. In terms of the business, a former executive, and I'll use the term getting the band back together. Niv Fernando has rejoined probably 18 months ago. He's in that strategic growth and mergers and acquisitions. So like the business, really considered execution, profitable growth.
The Data3 doesn't have to go out and invent new tech. They are able to just resell Microsoft and other service providers, which are always going to be in need and in use. So they can switch from one provider to another, continue implementation, continue their services, and they're going to be a great beneficiary out of a huge, I expect, change in customer dynamics of a lot of the technology at the moment.
You've worked hard for your money all your life. Now your money needs to work hard for you. Whether you're building, transferring or drawing down, the right information makes all the difference. At Ausbiz Retire, you'll find the latest news and insights from trusted experts all in one place. Ausbiz Retire is powered by RAN, retirement income done differently. In a world of market noise and uncertainty, a disciplined approach to investing matters more than ever. Wealthy and Wise brings Team Invest's value investing playbook to Ausbiz. Unpack how the macro environment impacts business analysis. Put similar stocks head to head and make a call on which one wins.
Tick for earnings growth, it's a good business. Return on equity very high and declining debt, so strong balance sheet, strong moats. And available on a PE at the moment of 19 times, which is right at the bottom of its 10-year trading history and well below, or sort of in line with at least the bottom end of the market average. So looks like a good potential investment.
Plus, ask the Team Invest experts to deep dive into a stock or topic of your choice. Just email us your questions. Live from 1 p.m. every Wednesday. Wealthy and Wise is your guide to value investing, powered by Team Invest.
All right, so that was the stock of the day. And of course, just looking more broadly in terms of, we discussed what will be happening tonight, Bank of England, ECB. Not a lot happening tomorrow, but also worth noting, I guess, what we're seeing more broadly in the macro economy and in Asia too. Indonesia's economic growth surging to a 3-year high.
Look, while we're talking about interest rates, and I know you just moved on from that, but I was speaking with Adam Boyton off air, unfortunately, who is the head of economics here in Australia for ANZ. And I thought it was really interesting because this has obviously been such a big week with the RBA hiking, and the governor of the RBA, Michelle Bullock, saying likely more to come, not necessarily one and done, seems to be the consensus. But Adam was telling me actually that he anticipates that inflationary pressures will start to wane, and ANZ is in the camp that it could be one and done. So he's starting 2026 with a little bit of optimism, reckons that after seeing that peak in the final quarter of 2025 that we will start to see inflation come down in 26, that the RBA needed to send a message and that it did so. And it erred on the side of caution, as he reckons it should have, considering the data. But it was just interesting to hear that perspective today, one that I'll go back and listen to and take away. Maybe I'll try to get him in for all of you AusBiz viewers and listeners, because it was sort of a different take on what I've been hearing for the most part this week.
Well, Paul Brennan joined me earlier from Suncorp, and he says the key thing to watch is tomorrow Michelle Bullock speaking in Canberra at the House Economics Committee as well, because she would not be drawn at the press conference post the decision on whether or not she thinks the government is spending too much. She was not having any of that. There was about 7 different ways she was asked, maybe even more, by journalists. She was not being drawn on it. Paul Brennan said, look, it's going to be a lot harder to dodge those kind of questions at the committee tomorrow.
But there's a possibility that the politicians don't want to hear what she has to say, because as Adam Boyton and Tim Hext actually from Pendle were pointing out, governments have always been high spending. Governments have been very high spending, particularly since COVID. We've got COVID to thank for just so much stuff. But he was sort of intonating, Adam Boyton, I should say, that, look, it's not the fiscal picture in and of itself. Perhaps there's a conversation for that. But Tim Hext was saying, look, if you're thinking politics and what politicians can do in certain regards, he was pointing to the rise of housing investors over the past year or so, saying that really if politicians were going to step in and do anything, that's where they should have potentially been looking in terms of reining things in and changing policy to help with the overall inflationary pictures and to help with homeowners, of course, as well. Worthwhile going through some of the best performers today. Treasury Wine Estates was up by 6.25%, so that was a pretty good performance coming through there. Premier Investments as well in the retail space, up by 6%. Amcor 6% higher in the wake of its results, and GQG Partners amongst those best performers.
The decliners, we touched on Neuron Pharmaceuticals, they're down by more than 9%. NextGen Energy was also down by around 9%. Paladin 9%. Drone Shield again hit, off by about 8%, and Linus down by around 8% as well. The market a little lower as we round out the session. In fact, it kind of sold off a little bit more and falling below that 8,900 point level. For those that watch those things on the ASX 200, it fell through that level around, I think, 130 or so. So closing lower 38 points, 0.4%, 8,889.2 points.
CBA up by 1.7%, but yeah, when you look at the market map, I don't know if you can see that at all, that big red spot in the middle, I mean, we love it when our miners are bringing us tailwinds, but not so much when they are proving to be a massive headwind.
Yeah, it is pretty much a switch out of what we saw yesterday. Anyway, we'll do it all again from tomorrow, 9:45 a.m. Eastern. We'll see you then.
See you then.